This is session 6 of an 8-session workshop on story composition, otherwise known as making up stories. And I am recording this. The first 5 sessions also have been recorded, and the links to them are on the flyer. If all goes well, the link to this one will also be on the flyer. So if you want to catch up with the old sessions, you'll be able to. After today, there are 2 more sessions, next Friday and Saturday. I'll tell you about those in a minute. But this is story composition, making up stories. And the first 4 sessions, we reviewed ideas about story composition. And the ideas fell into 2 categories: dramatic structure and character development. And I really have come to feel, especially after doing this research and thinking, that a character goes through a process and sometimes faces a challenge and sometimes rises to the occasion and is able to do things that she never would have dreamed that she was able to do. And then her life has changed, and the life of the people around her has changed because she has shown that she is able to rise to the occasion. She is able to concentrate, focus, marshal her resources, and overcome what needed to be overcome. So the fact that she did it, she knows she could do something like that, and everyone around her knows she can do it. So that leads to a transformation in her. You know, she has more confidence now, and the world around her is different. So, you know, generalities and abstractions are for the birds, but I'm coming to feel that this kind of development is a key aspect of story in general. That a character, we like to see a character rise to the occasion. And, you know, because it gives us a thrill that maybe we can do it too. So today we're looking at The Tempest by William Shakespeare. And I'm going to run through the ideas about dramatic structure and character development. I'm going to put them on screen share in a few minutes. And then I'll lead you through applying it to The Tempest. I'm taking it for granted that many people do not know The Tempest, so I'll be telling the story along the way. And then in the final 2 sessions, next Friday, we're going to do the same thing with the Epic of the Ankle Bracelet, Silappathikaram, which is also one of my favorite stories, and a major reason that I'm here, that I shifted from New York to Tamil Nadu. And then the final session, a week from tonight, I'm going to apply these ideas to Words from the Forest, which is a story that I've made up for a screenplay that I'm trying to get produced. So, any comments or questions so far? Did anyone have anything to say about that character development process that I mentioned? That she not only overcomes a challenge, but now she knows she can overcome a challenge. Any thought about that? I know I've left movies sometimes with a real feeling of exuberance. And I think maybe I had that feeling because I had just watched a movie about a character rising to the occasion and fulfilling herself. You know, whatever pronoun, him, she, they. All right. So here I go to review these ideas about story, which have been generated both by people who work with story in film and story in literature, story in storytelling. My premise is that we can talk about story and dramatic structure regardless of the medium in which the story is shared. Okay. Now I'm going to go to screen share. Okay, can people see that with the yellow highlight? Good. Okay, there's a general agreement in the critical community that a story should begin or might begin with a hook. A hook is an incident that grabs your attention. You're hooked because you want to know, why did this happen? How did this happen? What does it mean? Where is it coming from? Where is it going? And if it's a book, you can't put the book down because you're so intrigued by what happened. Something happened. Something big happened. And of course, we identify with the characters from the get-go, so as if it happened to us. So we can't stop now. We're hooked. It grabbed our attention. This might give a sense of what is at stake, what is at risk in the story. And I'm a big believer, especially with storytelling, with using the voice and body to share a story in a social group. I'm a big believer in letting your listeners, watchers know as soon as possible what is at stake in this story. What are we hoping for? What is being hoped for? What is being feared? What is in play in this story? Very similar to the hook or following the hook is the inciting incident. That is something that happens which really sets the story in motion. You know, it makes it necessary that something else is going to happen, because the inciting incident destroys the balance that existed or exposes an imbalance that is there. And now the story cannot end until things are fixed. So look out for an inciting incident. And as I've said all throughout, I don't suggest really using these formulas to create a story. These are ideas that you can play with once you have a story. To create a story, it really needs to come from inside you, from your unconscious, from your daydreams, from your soul. And it has to take whatever form it's going to take. We don't want to create by formula. That's not real art. But there is a value to being aware of these famous story elements, famous for 1,000 years, 2,000 years in some cases, going back to Aristotle. It's interesting to be aware of them and see if they're useful, see if they apply. Okay, we all know about suspense. Suspense is, again, when something has happened and we expect something else is going to happen as a result. One shoe has fallen, and we expect the other shoe or the other foot to drop. And we won't be satisfied until what we expect to happen happens, or something like that happens. We may be seeking a sense of justice, a sense of completeness, but something, we're waiting for something to happen. Exposition is especially an important point in the story that we'll be looking at tonight, The Tempest. Exposition is when a character or when the narrator fills you in on the background. What has happened until now? And the big complaint with exposition is that it's boring. In story, we want to see things happening. We don't want to hear things described. But sometimes exposition is necessary. In The Tempest, The Tempest is that there's a man and his now 12-year-old daughter. They've been living on an island in the middle of the ocean for 12 years. And the opening hook of The Tempest is that there's a terrible storm, a tempest, and a ship is shipwrecked on the island where the man and his daughter live. And he has actually caused the shipwreck because he knows magic. But the opening scene is all the men on the ship panicking and calling out, hell is empty and all the devils are here, because they're also seeing hallucinations of demons that the man, the magician, is causing them to see. So the opening scene is this wild shipwreck, and they think there's fire. It's not real fire, but they imagine there's fire, and they're all jumping overboard into the ocean. After that scene calms down a little bit, the man who lives on the island, his daughter asks him, what was that storm and fire all about? And he explains to her the background. And that's a sneaky way of explaining to the audience the background of the whole thing. What it was that 12 years ago, he had been king of Naples, a city-state in Italy. But his brother had overthrown him and put him and his daughter in a boat and sent them out to sea, hoping that they would die, but they didn't have the nerve to kill them. But instead of dying, the father and daughter ended up in this island in the middle of the Mediterranean, where they've been since. And this tempest that the man, his name is Prospero, the tempest is caused by him because he knows magic. He has shipwrecked the people who stole his kingdom. And this whole story is about him taking care of unfinished business. And we'll discuss, is he getting revenge? Is he getting justice? But he is trying to set the situation right from what happened 12 years ago, which is that he was overthrown and expelled and almost killed. Okay, so exposition. I think I've given some exposition just now. Rising action, I like gathering storm as a metaphor. Things start to happen, the plot thickens, complications, excitement. What the story is really about is coming into focus. There may be a problem. In the Tempest, the problem is that Prospero wants his kingdom back. And he wants justice against the people who overthrew. And actually, it turns out he helps heal them, because he awakens their consciences and they feel guilt and they apologize finally, most of them. So they had been suppressing their guilt, but now they deal with it. And according to one of the characters, they find themselves because of the process that they go through. But anyway, it's a very popular idea, I'm sure you've heard it, that story is all about problem and solution, maybe solution. That a main character wants something. I write MC for main character. I don't like that word protagonist. It's a little abstract. I talk about the main character. So the main character wants something. Is she going to get it? Is she not going to get it? What's going to happen? That is the simplest story spine and most popular even today when people are teaching creative writing. Okay, along the way, there will be setbacks, obstacles. Sometimes these are called pinches. You know, when you've been pinched, you have to stop and deal with the pain. So likewise, there are pinches in stories where the character gets taken aback. Twists and turns, ups and downs, joys and frustrations. Along the way, there may be a moment where all seems to be lost. It was a good try, but it's crushed. It's lost. It's the darkest hour of the night. But then there may be resilience and recovery. And then it all comes to a climax, a moment of truth with a confrontation with an inner or outer antagonist. Antagonist is not a villain. Antagonist is just something that's blocking the main character from getting what she wants. And a big principle here, if we find out that every antagonist or antagonistic element that puts up a block, if the main character overcomes it, it leads to character growth and development and maturity. So it's an opportunity when bad things happen to the characters. And let me go off a screen share for a minute. No, please, people. Oh, I see. I'm on Spotlight. Yeah. A lot of the thinking about cinema story developed in the 60s and 70s and in California. And that was the same time as the development of the New Age movement. And some of the ideas, like Joseph Campbell, who actually wrote his famous book in '54, but became a lot more known in the 60s and 70s. All of these ideas about development applies to characters in movies and also to us, to every one of us. That's kind of permeating, that's the subtext of a lot of this of thinking. So I'll be asking you soon about events in your own life that relate to this dramatic structure, and especially the story of the Tempest. Okay, let me go back to screen share for another couple of minutes before we really dive into the Tempest. Share screen. Okay, and falling action is the way that everybody adjusts to the new normal. The new normal, if it's a successful story for the main character, the new normal is that she has done something she nor anyone else ever dreamed that she could do. So now she knows she can do it. Others know she can do it. It's a new situation. It's a new family. It's a new society, a new community. Everything around her is different because she's not the person some people thought she was. She's more than that, and people have to get used to that. Okay, character development. It may be that the audience just learns more about a character in the course of the story, and so our perception changes. Or it may be that the character actually changes. It can be one or both. So I'm saying that on a very important level, stories in general are about the psychological growth, maturation, development, and transformation of the main character, where I like these phrases. She rose to the occasion. She outdid herself. After this, she knows what she's capable, and she has more confidence in herself. This relates to this term used by Carl Jung, individuation, which is all about becoming more aware of aspects of oneself and integrating those aspects, even negative aspects, and also integrating oneself with society, history, and the universe, whatever that means to you. If a character is kind, generous, and humble, allies and helpers may appear in stories. The good you do comes back to you. We all know that, right? That's a basic principle that many of us believe in life. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. The principle of karma is basically that. Although karma says it'll happen in the next lifetime, we can also say that it will happen in the same lifetime. Because when we are kind, generous, and humble, we're putting out good energy, and allies, helpers, including fairy godmothers. Well, yesterday we looked at Cinderella, may appear. Another thing that may happen in the story is that at a certain point, the main character may change from being a passive character who's just being tossed around by fate like leaves being swept around in the wind. She crosses a threshold and she commits to trying to do something. So she's crossed a point of no return, and now she's dedicated to doing something. Some people make a distinction between wants and needs of a character. What a character wants is, that drives the plot. Prospero wants his kingship back, and that drives the plot. But a deeper psychological level is the emotional maturity, the psychological maturity that can I say needs to happen. Okay, let's also keep a lookout for how a story relates to and speaks to the present day local and global social cultural conditions. And of course, does the story inspire us, or does the story give us warning? A story where characters make poor decisions and things end badly, that's a warning story for us. Where inspiration is a success story. Okay, that is a review of some thinking about story, especially dramatic structure and character development. Please, somebody give me some feedback, and the feedback I'm interested in is if you'll share with us a thought that crossed your mind in the last 10 minutes. Will anyone do that? Even if you have your camera turned off. Do we want to do this chat thing? I really don't care for this mediated thing. I really wish a few more people would turn on their cameras and talk to us. But if you can't, if it's you know, you're on the other side of the world and it's the middle of the night, or you have a bandwidth issue or some such, so be it. But please, someone talk to us. What has crossed your mind? Now we all know
This
that.
is Angela.
Go ahead.
Hi,
Yeah, go
this is
ahead.
Angela Lloyd.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on. I have headphones in and I have to bring up the sound. Hold on. I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
Okay. You mentioned it, and the one of the thoughts that crossed my mind, and in general, I always really pay attention to when I'm working with a story, is the physical environment of the story.
Mhm.
And this is really, it's good for me as the teller to, I love to really look around that physical place,
Mhm.
and I love to give that physical, to tell about that physical environment in sensory details, so the listener has a chance to, has a background, has an environment for which to see the action. I believe that that allows listeners to relax and really enter the world. And very briefly, one of my favorite images of this, a connection, is sometimes when we begin to watch a film, the camera begins way out far from Earth, and slowly comes in over sometimes forest and water and trees, or and it just keeps coming in closer and closer. And as watchers of a film, we're seeing the physical landscape, and it might event some the camera comes all the way into a city, keeps coming into a block, comes to a building, comes to a door or a window, and in that window, and by the time we meet the character, we have a physical sense of where we are. And I feel that is tantamount.
Mhm.
So my
Uh,
personal opinion.
Laura, sure. Laura certainly has trained me and many people the importance of visualizing a story before you tell it, as you tell it, and helping the listeners to visualize it along the way. But I want to say that this workshop is not about storytelling. It's not about.
Right, great.
I want to say performance, but Laura also trained me not to call storytelling performance. I don't know if she ever mentioned that to you, Angela. But
She's my root teacher.
yeah, so yeah, I'm sure you've heard this too. You cannot call storytelling performance because it's deeper than that. It's a ritual. But anyway, let's try to stay with story in the abstract. I know it's difficult, and not really talk about storytelling, the physical social activity using the body and voice, but the story in general. Okay, good. Thank you. Anyone else have a thought?
Eric, Lalita here.
Go ahead.
Yeah. From what you have said, may I understand that a character is the driving force of the story, like the story that the character leads to the events. So a strong character based on his nature or his or her nature. So the character pulls the story ahead, or the character leads to the events. Like if we are going to write a story, the first thing that comes to our mind should be the character, and then follow it with the sequence of events, something
Well,
like that.
the way I think about it is it's not the character, it's the situation that the character is facing. And the character may not be strong at the beginning, but somehow the character finds the strength. That's the story.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so the
Yes.
story events generate the conditions under which the character transforms into a strong, mature character who can rise to the occasion and do what she never thought she would have been able to do. That's the story of story that I'm working on.
Okay.
I'm coming from. Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, let's proceed to The Tempest. The Tempest was it's either the final play Shakespeare wrote or one of the very final, and it's considered to be a kind of a metaphorical statement about his life as an artist, as a playwright, and the main character at the end goes into retirement, just like Shakespeare went into retirement after writing this play or thereabouts. So this play is about a man who feels he's been abused. I mentioned he was king of Naples, but he had a flaw, you know. He loved to stay in his room and read magic books and study. I guess he was studying other things too, but he was more a scholar than an administrator. So he loved reading. He loved this learning about magic, and he neglected his kingdom a little bit. And he neglected what was going on at court. So what finally happened was that his younger brother, with assistance from a neighboring king, did a military coup against him. But we cannot say, and he even knows it, that he was totally innocent. It was his fault in the sense that he didn't come out of his room enough. But then what happened, the way he was overthrown and put in this small boat by his younger brother and the neighboring king, now he's had 12 years to stew about it. And he's angry. And he's determined to get justice. And what happens is the neighboring king and Prospero's younger brother happen to be on a ship passing by to go to a wedding in Tunisia, which is a very...
One second, Eric,
Mhm.
your recording is paused. I don't know why it is so.
Oh,
It
good
shows
point.
recording paused.
Thank you. Yeah, maybe I was shaking the computer. Thank you so much. Okay, so the younger brother of Prospero and his ally, the neighboring king, they were on a ship going from Italy to Tunisia, North Africa, because I think the daughter of the neighboring king was marrying someone there. And Prospero grabs the opportunity to cause this tempest. So two questions naturally are, how did Prospero do it? You know, how can a person do magic to cause a storm? I love the story element that a person is so full of emotion that they are able to affect nature. You know, it goes out into nature. I like that as a story element. But then the other big question is, how did he know these guys were going in a ship nearby? We're never told that. It's part of his magic abilities somehow. But anyway, he causes the shipwreck. I'm going to read you some dialogue lines a little later, but I think I should just go through it the first time, just telling you from my heart, because I know the story by heart. I first saw productions of this 50-odd years ago in New York City, and as a teenager. And I remember one production I went to 3 nights in a row, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. A production that was in plain clothes. People were just wearing clothes like these. There was no props, no scenery, no set, but brilliant. I loved it. And I loved the story, and I also loved the acting. Okay, so we don't know how he does his magic. We don't know how he knows that the ship is passing, but he does. And so the opening hook is that tempest going on. And then then he explains it all to his daughter, and that's the exposition. And the neighboring king who helped overthrow him has a son who's on this voyage also, and both the neighboring king and his son jump overboard, and they both think each other have drowned. They both think each other are dead, but they're not. The storm was facilitated by a kind of spirit that lived on this island, who Prospero has somehow Prospero has control over this spirit, and a witch had trapped the spirit inside of a tree, and Prospero freed the spirit, and the spirit has agreed to work for Prospero for some time, but the spirit keeps asking, Master, can you let me go now? Have we done enough? So finally Prospero lets him go. But the spirit goes on the ship and causes the illusion of fire. And now this spirit also it fixes it so that the father and son of the neighboring kingdom both think each other are dead. And they're both absolutely distraught about it. They're now on the island. So it's a all is lost moment for the father and for the son, which Prospero has designed. He's engineered that people are going to suffer because of what they did to him. Then they're going to finally feel guilt, and they're going to finally apologize to him. And they do. He engineers a process by which they all suffer. Some of them see hallucinations related to the violence that they did against him. He says their brains are boiled inside their skulls. And he's doing the boiling. So it's up to you, the listener, the viewer, the reader. Do you think Prospero is being too cruel to these people? He's making them think their loved ones are dead. He is causing them to have hallucinations, which drive them almost to the point of suicide. So he's putting them through a lot of stuff. But from his point of view, and as it turns out, it's all for the sake of awakening their consciousness. He's giving them a taste of their own medicine. He's putting a mirror up to nature, and he's making them experience and feel what they did to him. And as I say, along the way, the spirit, Ariel, says, sir, I felt pity on them. You would feel pity on them too if you saw them. And Prospero says, isn't that something? You're not even human, and you feel pity. I, as a human, I should feel some pity. Ariel reminds him to feel pity. So at this point, I would invite you all to think in your own lives, to connect to this story. Does any situation come to mind where you feel you were wronged? Something was taken away from you unjustly. You were betrayed in some sort of way. We could do this different ways. We could also think about how we have betrayed others, and how we need to go through a process of becoming aware of what we did wrong. But today's story is a character who feels he has been wronged. So let's go with that. Does anything come to mind where you felt you were really betrayed, wronged, and what did you do about it? Were you able to get justice to date? Maybe you're still working on it, or have you just walked away from it? But take a few minutes. If you have a pad or pencil, write down some thoughts. This will help you connect to the Tempest, because you'll see it in your own life, perhaps. Yeah, so if you can, get a pad and pencil and write about an incident in your own life where you were, something was stolen from you, taken from you, and at the time you couldn't do anything about it, but you've lived with it. You lived with it for some time, and then it's not that you got revenge. Maybe you did just get revenge, but in the Tempest, he gets justice, which is a little bit different from revenge. Revenge is just inflicting pain. Justice is a little bit different, and really finally he does help the wrongdoers heal. It's spoken about in the play that he helped them find themselves where before they had been lost. So go ahead, write for a couple of minutes. Can you relate to this at all? Have you ever, and I'm not going to ask you to share this out loud because it's too, personal and painful, but just for your own involvement, please take a minute and think and write about, have you ever felt wronged and what did you do about it? Take 2 minutes. So you will note this story, or the version that we have from William Shakespeare, it starts in the middle. It starts with that big hook inciting incident of the storm, the Tempest. But the beginning of the story, as I've told you, is that this Prospero was king of Naples, and he neglected his administrative work, and he was overthrown, set adrift, and came to the island where he lived for 12 years with his daughter before having the opportunity to shipwreck his antagonists. And as Shakespeare presents the story, he starts with that Tempest, which is 12 years into the story. So you always have an option as a story presenter to present the story chronologically, or to start at some dramatic moment in the middle. And then if you start in the middle, you have to give exposition. You have to somehow explain. You might be clever like Shakespeare was and have the exposition be given by one character to another character. And by the way, the audience is also listening. When Ariel the spirit was on the ship, causing the illusion of the fire, see, Prospero says, who was so firm, so constant that the fire did not infect his reason? And Ariel says, not a soul was so constant. Every one of them felt a fever of the mad and played some tricks of desperation. All but the mariners plunged into the foaming brine and quit the vessel, then all afire with me. The king's son Ferdinand, with hair upstanding, then like reeds, not like hair, he was the first man who leaped, crying, hell is empty and all the devils are here. I mentioned that before, right? So Ariel is explaining to Prospero what happened on the ship, because it's hard to stage a ship going on fire completely. So it's partly explained by Ariel. And once the people are walking around the island, the boy who thinks his father has been killed, the boy is innocent, he didn't overthrow Prospero, but his father did. But he's getting suffering along the way anyway. But Ariel sees that boy and young man and sings to him, full fathom 5 thy father lies. Of his bones are coral made. Those are pearls that were his eyes. Nothing of him that doth fade, but doth suffer a sea change into something rich and strange. So in a roundabout way, Ariel is giving hope to the boy that his father is being resurrected as a coral reef. But Prospero is happy now. In addition to the king who overthrew him and Prospero's younger brother, there's two other pairs of people from the ship who are walking around the island. One pair is the court jester of the king who is shipwrecked and who's a drunk, and his friend who's a kind of like a janitor who's also a drunk, and they meet up with Caliban. Caliban is the other character who lives on the island, who is a brute. He tried to molest the girl. Miranda is the daughter of the king. Caliban is this play is a little controversial in that it was written during the age of exploration. You know, when the British and the other Europeans were colonizing the world, and so this island is a little bit modeled after the New World, America or wherever. And, you know, the stories got back to England about savages. So Caliban is sort of a savage, a brute, who tried to rape the daughter. And now Prospero keeps him far away. Yeah, Caliban said, it's too bad you stopped me. I would have peopled this island with many little Calibans. So Caliban teams up with the two drunken guys from the ship, and it tells the two drunken guys, hey, I'll help you kill my master, Prospero. So they're on an expedition to find Prospero and kill him, but Ariel knows all about it, and Ariel is leading them through swamps and thorn bushes, and they're having great suffering. But they're sort of a comic relief element, but they do present some danger. And then the other danger, see, there has to be some danger in a story, right? In a plot, is that Prospero's younger brother, who's now king of Naples, and the younger brother of the king who helped. It's confusing. The two young men have decided to try to overthrow the king of Naples, who is the older brother of one of the young men. So they're on the way to try to kill the king of Naples. On the island there to take over Naples. But Prospero and Ariel have their eye on that team also. So these are the two, you know, in a story, there has to be some danger that has to be fought. And so these are the two dangers that are going on there. But in the middle of this, Prospero says, my high charms work. These mine enemies are all knit up in their distractions, because they're seeing hallucinations of nightmares. They are now in my power, and in these fits I leave them while I visit young Ferdinand. The Prospero engineers that the young man who thinks his father is dead, he engineers that young man meeting his daughter, and he engineers that they're going to come together and marry. And in the next generation, you see the fighting elements of the old generation, the new generation marries. And so that fight turns into a love match. So Prospero really is a peacemaker. He wants the next generation to undo the damage that happened in his generation. So he's telling Ariel to take the people here, lead them into a swamp, give them hallucinations of flying nightmares. And Ariel keeps saying, yes, sir, I'll do it. But do you love me? He interrupts all the plotting and the suffering that Prospero is inflicting on these guys. Ariel says, yeah, I'll do it, but do you love me? So he brings him back down to earth. Other times Ariel says, yeah, I'll do it, but you said I'd be done by now and that you'd set me free by now. And Prospero says, yes, I'm going to set you free, but first I have to do this. So Ariel is sort of the conscience of Prospero, reminding him to be merciful. Prospero, at some point, he says, go, my goblins. Ariel is able to create images of goblins, scary fairies. Prospero says, go, goblins. Go, make them grind their joints with dry convulsions. He's talking about the people who overthrew him. With dry convulsions, shorten their sinews with aged cramps. More pinch-spotted them make than a leopard or a cat of the mountain. Give them more bruises than a leopard has spots. Let them be hunted soundly. At this hour, lie at my mercy all my enemies. Shortly all my labors will end, and you will have your freedom, Ariel. But for now, just do your service for a little bit longer. Ariel at one point says, sir, your charm so strongly works them that if you now beheld them, your affections would become tender. Prospero says, do you really think so? And Ariel says, mine would, sir, if I were human. And Prospero says, and mine shall. Hast thou, which art but a spirit, a touch, you have a touch, a feeling of their afflictions, and shall not myself, one of their kind, should I should also feel their pain. So eventually Prospero does. Okay, one question I want to put up for discussion, debate is, does Prospero change in the course of this story, or does just the circumstances change? You see, by the end, he forgives them, or he even forgives his younger brother, and he says, I forgive you even though you are unnatural and that you're essentially cruel, but I forgive you anyway. And the other people he forgives, they apologize. So and as I say, there's a general feeling that each one of them has found themselves as a result, in part, of remembering and, in some cases, apologizing for what they did. And then at the end, Prospero says, okay, let's go back to Italy. I want to see my daughter and your son married, and I'll be king of Naples again, but every third thought will be my death. And I'm going to bury my book of magic. So basically, I'm going to retire. I'm going to get ready to die because I've completed my mission of righting this wrong and setting up the next generation. So my question is, Prospero, the way I've described him, does he change in the course of the story, or does he just go through different situations? Anyone have a thought about that? Manoj? Yeah, go ahead, please. You got to turn your mic on.
What I feel is that because you want a happy ending and you want everything to be nice and positive, so you should be show in stories that people change and people, but in real life, people don't change. That's what I feel. And
well, when Prospero felt he got justice against these people, and then he forgave them, and he was satisfied. So do you think he changed, or just he couldn't relax until he got his justice?
yeah, he got his justice, but other people changing because they were stuck in a circumstances, because they were hallucinating and all those things were happening to them. So they accepted that they did something wrong. But in real life, human characters remain the same till the end. This whole thing of, this whole thing of metamorphosis and all that, is fictional, I feel.
Well, it's presented in the Tempest that especially his rival king, the king of Naples, Alonso is his name, that he really does feel contrition. He really does apologize sincerely. The others maybe not, but
Yeah.
so there can be an argument or a point that the King of Naples goes through a character change, but my feeling is Prospero doesn't really change. All throughout, he's on the verge of being sadistic, of going too far. But Ariel reminds him and kind of says, "Okay, pull back, pull back. Don't forget what this is all about." See, the question is, when people are abused, do they become as bad as the abuser? To bring in a very painful present day historical situation, the Jews were so tortured in World War II. Now, it could be said that the way that they are treating some Palestinian people is as bad as what the Nazis did to them.
Yeah, because
sometimes we learn and we internalize the brutality that so many abused children abuse others. We sometimes carry on that cycle of abuse. If we've experienced it, we do it to somebody else. So it's a rare and wonderful thing if the cycle of abuse can be stopped. And as it's presented in the Tempest, it's stopped because Prospero stops torturing them and stops making them see the horror of their own natures when he gets some of them to sincerely apologize, and one or two of them he says, "You're just essentially destructive. The best I can do is keep my distance from you." But he forgives them. So to me, the drama of the Tempest is he going to become as bad as the people who abused him, or is he going to rise above that? And he does rise above it.
yeah, he does rise above it, but because now it's all about being in a position of power or of weakness. When Jews were tortured during the World War, they were in a position of weakness. They were not. They were less in numbers, and power was in somebody else's hand. But the moment the power came into Jews' hands, they are retaliating now. It's all about power.
Yeah, and we have to be clear. It's a certain faction within the Jewish community that is doing all of the killing. There's a great deal, many Jewish people, including me, who are horrified with the killing of the Palestinians, so the way it is. But we also have to put ourselves in the position of the generals of Israel who say we have to do what we're doing because they're so frustrated. There are these tunnels in Palestine under the hospitals and all else, and Hamas is dedicated. Hamas is dedicated to the destruction of Israel. They say it. So it's a tough thing to crack.
It's about survival of the race, Jews race. They are
Well,
worried
both
about-
sides. Hamas says it's about the survival of our side, and Israel says, or that faction of Israel that's doing the military killing, they say it's a matter of survival for our side. So when both sides are locked in like that, the rest of the people in their communities pay the price.
Yes, that's
The
true.
Palestinians are paying the price for what Hamas has done.
So I don't think an eye for an eye. The famous Mahatma Gandhi
Yeah, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. If we follow that culture, everybody ends up with no eyes and no teeth.
Yeah. Yeah, but some people say you still remain with one eye, no?
They'll take away that too. If it's full eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, everyone's gonna have no eyes and no teeth. That's the
this-
end.
in case of Tempest, it is the brother who was the king earlier. He also had a lot of weaknesses.
Which one? The
were
one who was overthrown?
Yeah, in Tempest,
That's Prospero, the older brother. Yeah. Well, I say his weakness was that he didn't really care for administration, and he kept aloof
So-
and isolated, and that opened the
That's why-
door for him to be overthrown.
That's why he lost his kingdom, because he was not a good this thing.
Well, he wasn't paying attention,
Yeah.
and he paid
So
a big
he-
price. And
so Now,
uh,
when he was thrown, when there was a coup, when he was thrown,
Mm.
it was his fault also that he was a bad king. He was a bad administrator.
wasn't a bad, he was a weak.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. he's a
Yeah.
weak-
Yeah,
He
but
was
he
not
had 12 years to think about it, and 12 years to somehow team up with nature. Isn't that fascinating that a character can team up with nature to exert his will on nature or collaborate with nature to punish a wrongdoer? It implies
get-
that nature also wants to help bring people to justice.
That's true. That's true.
Anybody
So,
else? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Person remains a good person till the end, and a bad person remains a bad person. He realizes for a moment, but then he remains a bad person. That's what I feel.
Yeah, Prospero, I would say he was a good person. He bordered on going too far and being too cruel, but Ariel helped bring him back, and and then finally it ended well with him setting up his daughter and the young man to marry, so there'd be peace and unity in the future generations. And he managed to engineer the situation so that there could be a peaceful resolution.
Correct.
But there was danger along the way that even Ariel says, I got to run after them quick because they may kill themselves. Because of Prospero was making them see hallucinations of violence and all, which corresponded to the violence that they had committed. But it was a
Absolutely.
dangerous situation. Parvati, do you have any thoughts about this story or this character? Now you got to turn on your mic.
No, I don't have anything specific to say.
Did you think of any situation in your life where you felt betrayed or wronged? You don't have to tell the details, but did anything come to you?
Yes.
And in general, how did you handle it? Did you just walk away from it, or did you try to get justice?
It took some time to walk away from it. It took a long time to get over it and walk away from it, to bear it sort of.
So
And
you've not been able to bring the
retaliate. I couldn't retaliate.
you
That's
couldn't
what you
retaliate,
meant.
and you couldn't show them the error of their ways.
Not then.
Not yet. Maybe in the future. Okay. Anyone else? Any thoughts about Prospero? See, his name is Prospero, which means prosper. And there's a great, well, it's great to me, a quote in the play where he says, I wish I had it written down here. I've got to take advantage of this moment with the storm, with the people nearby coming in the ship. If I don't take advantage of this moment, my fortunes will forever after droop. This is the moment where I have to rise to the occasion and call on the help of the storm and put people through their processes. And he was able to do it, but he recognized this was a crucial moment in his life. Where if he couldn't do it, his fortunes would ever after droop. And we may have situations like that in our own lives, or we may imagine that we do. Anyone else?
Could I, Eric?
Of course, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, I can't start my video. There's some
Okay.
problem.
Go ahead.
But I think that maybe it takes one to change. It takes a storm to make one change sometimes, but not always. Like, I remember this story. It's not a story, it's a real situation that a dear friend of mine was narrating, that she went through this. Usually in Indian societies, there's a tradition of changing names of the daughter in law. So she would always be very angry about it, but she couldn't express. All along, she was very submissive because, and her mother-in-law used to make it a point to call her with a changed name. So many years she just kept quiet, but one fine day, she just asked her mother-in-law that, why do you call me with this changed name? Why can't you call me by the name that my parents have kept? So mother-in-law very casually replied that this is how it is. Like, you have come to our house, so this is your new name, and since you are with us, so we call you by this name. Your husband has kept this name. So the daughter-in-law was like taken aback, and she said that, but what will happen if you call me by my maiden name, which my parents have kept? So I will only reply with the same affection that I do with my parents. So I would respond in the same way as I would have with my parents. So why can't you call me with that name, by that name? So that was a changing point for the mother-in-law. And she changed then. So it doesn't take a storm always to make one realize about certain things. It's just maybe a discussion, or maybe sometimes a person feels that, yeah, this is how it is and it should be carried on. So this change, I feel, might come through by peaceful means also.
Sure, but a storm can also be a metaphor for an emotional, feeling in an emotional storm inside, not an actual physical storm. But
Yeah,
but
but the emotional storm also, like sometimes, like really makes you feel in distress for some time, and then maybe you could come to that realization. But here, the things were smoother.
yes, that's wonderful. And she stood up for herself. She claimed her name. She
Yes.
claimed her selfhood.
And this is after going through tolerating for a long time, after
Okay,
showing a tolerance for a long time.
that's great, and that she could do it in a
Don't
way
you,
that could be accepted. You know,
Yes.
if we
don't
do
you
come
think?
on with too much of a storm and a
Yes.
lot of anger, that raises
Yes.
anger in the other party. But it
Right.
sounds like she was able to do it in a very cool, reasonable way, and she won. She won her case. So
Right. I
that's
feel she is the main character.
that
No,
she's the main character,
can I
and she
interrupt here?
just one second. She I don't know if we can say she had character development, because I mean, clearly she had it in her all along, but
Mhm.
she put up with it for a long time, but then
Mm.
finally she in a peaceful, loving way, she
Right.
made her case and she won her case. That is
Yes.
that's a wonderful character, and it
Yeah.
relates to the kind of transformation that I'm talking about, that I see in stories in general. Successful, when the characters are successful, that they either exhibit or develop the maturity, the resilience, the unknown resources that they weren't sure they had. They find all that with themselves, and they are able to find their voice, find their place, find their position, and they have new respect for
Right.
themselves, and other people have new respect for them.
Yes.
Who else wanted to say something?
Parvati,
Hmm.
what I felt was maybe Pratibha, that your friend would have had the tempest inside her for the, it would have come out. It would have been there in her mind. The tempest, the storm would have been there for so, even when you are submissive, the anger in you is there always. And then slowly, maybe through that anger, she found that solution for whatever she got it, and she
Yeah,
give
but
it
the storm was there inside her,
her, yeah.
whereas the storm was not experienced by the other party.
No.
right?
Yes, she
Yeah.
was able
And
to control it in herself so that
yes,
it did not raise a storm on the other side.
on the
Yeah.
other side,
Yeah.
right?
Great.
So she could, like, really, it was a very smooth sailing kind of thing to arrive to the solution for the other party. But she had to go through for a long time. She had to tolerate for a long
And
time.
she ended up the captain of her own ship.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to close the session in a couple minutes. Does anyone want to say anything else about Prospero or about your own experience with feeling betrayed and what you did about it? Agnieszka, of course, I cannot pronounce your name, but I admired the way Nicholas could pronounce your name.
Yeah, exactly. He had the skill from his Polish ancestors. Yeah. Basically, I was turning this question in the way you put it at one point, that what we were, if we were somehow deprived of something, not betrayed, but deprived of something. And the only thing I started to thinking about was the house of my grandma, that, you know, I have no more access to this house after she died. So this is something that and another house of my aunt, which is far away from my place. And, you know, I visit her a lot, and there is this connection with the house and everything what the house is, like the home. Yeah. And so, and we, this is our common experience, because we can wander around the houses which we don't have access anymore. Yeah. And and I think that this is something we naturally have to agree for. But this is a kind of reflection about, you know, maybe um, uh, uh, the connection to how we used to live in, you know, generation houses with all the grandmothers or granddaughters, and everyone was from generation to generation was staying there and was raising with the strength of the ancestors. And now in our times we are cutting this cord. And yeah, this is something like, I don't know, maybe archetypical, because it's our common experience that we used to grow together. And now basically in European countries we are cutting, we are making independent, we are living independently, you know, we are putting a lot of effort to be you know, to be enough, to have enough, you know, to be self-independent. Yeah. And maybe this is something, yeah, that that came to my mind, that we are deprived of, but maybe because of our culture somehow, that we went this way.
So it's not a matter of correcting a wrong or getting justice or anything. You're just identifying a social condition which is causing a difficulty.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And how we come up with this, in generally, as people, as community. Yeah, how we come up with this idea of building ourselves, you know, ego this way somehow.
And if any compromise can be found, maybe.
Maybe we should look further to the communities who are still living together, and we can learn something.
Good. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to add anything, or shall we end the session? I appreciate that family there. the Bikash family, thank you so much for joining us. Are you going to say a word to us?
Yeah, hi. My name is Meenu. I'm so sorry I cannot put my video on,
Okay.
but I would like to, in the story, I identify myself with the daughter because some of my uncles had backstabbed my father. And as a child, what I felt was really like it took me years to get over it. And since you're a child, you cannot even speak out about it. And my father had forgiven my uncles, and he taught us like it's okay, let go. What's written in our destiny will happen. Whatever they've done, it's their karma, whatever you say. So you should let go. But it took me, I think, almost after my marriage, I had joined a theater group wherein they had made us do an exercise in which I really cried out this pain which was there inside me. So maybe, what I felt in my I was 15 years when this thing happened with us. And I think when I became 25 or 30, that whole anger which I had just kept inside me and I couldn't actually tell it to anyone. It came out through a lot of tears. And after that, I completely forgave, my uncles and all. And then I'm like at peace. So sometimes it happens when someone betrays your parents, it affects the child. So here I was just wondering how it must have affected that little girl who was with the king. So that is my point of view.
Well, she got the benefit that she got a chance to marry the son of the wrongdoer king, and now she's going to be queen, probably of both Naples and Milan.
Yeah,
So-
that's maybe because the father did not feed in so much negativity about the uncles to the child. It could be,
correct.
that's why
Correct.
she could accept the marriage so openly.
Correct.
Otherwise, it's not possible because if you have a feeling of negativity for the person, you cannot marry because for 12 years, your father is
If
the
if there-
soul
if
who,
there-
whatever he teaches you is basically is what a child, learns.
Yes, if there's that sense of bitterness. Prospero
Yes.
didn't really have that bitterness. He didn't
Right.
he didn't have that far. Bikash, are you gonna tell us something?
Yeah, just first of all, thanks for setting up this session. This is first time I am participating in this festival,
Thank you.
and great story. And only one thing, just I wanted to share, like when we hear this story, there are moments when we get betrayal, like we are getting betrayed by somebody. So during that moment, it doesn't like we don't feel good. We are flowed away by the emotions, and we feel like to take revenge or do something in the shorter run. But in those situations, we should ponder for a moment, do some retrospection, and we should think like, is it something which happened? We think is it as a betrayal, as somebody has betrayed us, but it may be something we can get some positives out of it. So it is something which is short term, like as we have seen in this story. The particular victim, he tried to take the help of nature, like with his storms and all. He tried to do whatever worst possible to hurt or like to make to express his feeling. But we should ponder for a moment, and we should also see the positive side of it. That's also something I wanted to share.
Yes, we should be very careful before trying to take the law into our own hands and correct the situation. We should be very careful. Great. Thank you so much. Anyone else want to say anything? Suvarna?
Thank you.
I think many thoughts pretty similar to what has been shared. I think even for me, it was actually like being a witness to what was happening with my parents. There was no betrayal, but it was a choice that they made of taking care of a very extended family, and as a result of which, things that in their individual personal lives they could not do, and being a child and being a witness to that silently, I think that was something that that's something to share how it feels, and it was certainly not a betrayal on any count, but however, not getting the reciprocation of that, which is like the unsaid rule, right? You said good things and good things come back to you, but if good things don't come back to you, then that may sort of strike off a feeling as to why. But having said that, I think for me, like the way you were explaining the story structure, when automatically the student is ready, the teacher arrives, when good things started arriving, I think again for me it was only witnessing all this from outside. So when I saw them settled and happy and whatever, I think the tempest sort of settled down in my mind. So that is all that I wanted to share. I don't know if that really in any way resonates, but how a child silently one is like earlier Laura was saying, I found it so beautiful, being in the water and being in the shore at the same time. Being on the shore at the same time, how beautiful could it be? Like you're witnessing something, but you're out of it also. But and the silent tempest was happening. I feel in my growing years, in my own mind, which I never shared with anybody, neither with my parents or with anybody. That why did you make this choice? There's so much of things that you're not able to do for your own lives by virtue of making this choice. So very beautiful and very nice. When I heard this, this is what kept resonating. So I just sort of, sounded it. That's
Great.
all.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Okay.
and can I take a moment also to thank you? I think I've been a part of yesterday's sessions, today's sessions. It's been outstanding. I think what a storyteller could get, storytellers around and a beautiful space, different cultures, different stories, and what it's like popcorns popping, in the mind. Oh, this, oh, that, oh, that. So it's beautiful. And I think I need to thank you personally for this, for being so generous, just sending the link out and getting all of us across the world together. I mean, fees is one part, but just to generously put it out for everybody, it's a gift that you're giving all of us. Can't thank you enough. So, thank you.
Thank you so much. Well,
Yeah.
I'm hoping to get the positive reaction from the universe that my movie gets made.
I'm certain that that's going to happen. Certain, like all those angels in the structure that you mentioned, they are working already. So, and we are all rooting for it.
Very good. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll put the link to the summary of my movie in an email soon, so
Sure.
you'll all be able to read the summary. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you. Good night.
Did somebody say something? Manoj, did you say something? Laura, thank you so much for dropping by. I hope I've done justice.
Beautiful. Can I just say something to your original question about, was it the outer circumstances or changed, the Prospero changed?
Mm-hmm.
I think when you're in a story, maybe they're interchangeable. Maybe they're not separate. Maybe that's, I didn't hear enough of the first, but it was wonderful of Chris to hear this conversation following. But maybe maybe it's not one or the other. That's the way things work.
Thank you. Okay, we'll close the session. Please come back 6 days from now for this discussion about the Epic of the Ankle Bracelet.
Ooh.
Yes. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric.